Hello and welcome to the cryptocurrency news channel. So I got retweeted on this tweet about like how Vtho is terribly underpriced and how it's a dark horse for 1000x. Now we're actually going to analyze this and go bit by bit and take some of the tweets plus a lot of the facts we know. Is Vtho really 1000x underpriced? So let's actually just get this out of the way. Obviously, people who are tweeting this are trying to prove a point. It's going to be somewhat biased. There are facts that go with it, but it is going to be somewhat biased, obviously. But he does actually make some good points. So let's actually answer the question right off the bat. Is Vtho underpriced in terms of right now? The answer I would say is like no right now because you're still generating 37 million a day from all the VET. And you're right now today we burn about 12 million, but the average is around 10 million a day now almost. And that's a great rate of Vtho burn. It's like several times what we actually had at the beginning of last year. So we're growing really fast. But realistically, until you get really close to that 37 million, once you're approaching like 30, 32 million, per day average, that's when you can actually kind of say, oh, well, it might actually be starting to be underpriced at its current price range. Because if you don't get close to that 37 million, you're always generating more than you burn. And it could honestly be any price. I mean, you can say it can be like, if you want it to be $5, whatever, that's not really going to fly for like, the big corporations who are burning this stuff. It can also be worth like 1/10 billionth of a cent. And that would be fine too, because there's always more of it that you generate than you burn. So as of right now, is it overpriced, underpriced? Not really. It's at a fair price. Whatever the market price is perfectly fine. But that doesn't mean it's not horribly underpriced for the future because we only generate 37 million a day. Now they can change the ecosystem, and Sunny's actually mentioned this before. They can actually change the ecosystem where each Vtho actually takes care of more transactions. Obviously, if they do that and each Vtho takes care of more transactions, the value comparative to the company that has the Vtho or burning the Vtho is going to be greater. So they're actually going to value it at a higher price. So if they change the ecosystem, which I believe they will in the future in that way, Vtho will be worth more. And I think when they do that change is when you'll see those jumps in terms of price. So the tweet actually says, look where no one is looking to find 1000x. There is a dark horse, $1,000 on a parabolic rise towards $1 million through pure fundamentals. Now, for the record, I would love that because I have a decent stack of Vtho, and if we can get from 1,000 to $1 million, I win. But I think I have a very, very long time to wait. And I don't actually think the ecosystem is broken because they can actually change it slowly one at a time. But when they actually make those changes, let's say I think it's like 32 Vtho per transaction. Let's say they make it 5 Vtho per transaction. That's when the price is suddenly going to jump. And of course, toolchain and everything actually helps that. So it says like Vtho, he also tweets, Vtho is set to the global currency for the most advanced logistics database in history. I don't know about the whole global currency thing. It is the gas for the advanced logistics database. Most advanced logistics database in history, that's debatable, but you can go with that or not go with that depending on how much you actually like Vechain. Enterprises, by holding the coin VET, can passively produce Vtho and use that Vtho as currency to utilize all features in the blockchain database, smart contracts, etc. At least that was the original widely promoted strategy for Vechain's VET coin. Entities will buy tons of VET to produce their own Vtho. So how would that be applied if it was true today? Walmart is currently the top user of blockchain by far. I think they use something like 70 to 75% of all the Vtho burn, doing about 200K transactions to the blockchain a day, which cost $8,000, which for Walmart obviously is fairly cheap. In order to currently hold enough VET to support this, they would need to hold a quarter of all VET in existence, costing them $400 million up front in order to do 8K of transactions per day. That's true, and $400 million. And he basically says Walmart did not buy a quarter of the 86 billion VET supply. Obviously, didn't. And part of that is because they might not want to put up the upfront cash, but I think more of that has to do with regulations, that they don't want to hold something that maybe is kind of like regulatory wise is tenuous, and that applies for all crypto. It's $400 million is actually not a huge amount for Walmart. The Walmart yearly revenue for fiscal year 2020 was $524 billion. That's billion in compared to million. So it's to actually just buy all of the Vtho at once, that'd be like less than 1/1000th of their yearly revenue. That would roughly equal to about maybe maybe 4 or 5 hours of revenue during the day, because obviously Walmart's busier during the day than at night. So about like 4 to 5 hours worth of revenue. So if they really wanted to, they could spend the $400 million up front, and that would skyrocket Vtho price, and we would all love that, obviously. So they didn't do that. I think partially it's for regulatory reasons, and maybe they don't want to put the money up front, but they could also buy it directly from the foundation or buy it OTC somewhere as well. So I don't think money is the main issue keeping them out. I do think it's regulatory stuff, but when they are actually allowed to hold VET, they might actually buy some of it. So if the regulations ever come through, that we can see a big price increase, both for VET and Vtho. So, and then they next talk about a creative team quickly expanding along their Minecraft Pokemon hybrid game, which is, I think they're talking about Vulcanverse. In order to produce Vtho, before they launch, they would need to buy $40 million worth of VET, beyond impractical for any startup. That is true. So like they're using toolchain and all that stuff to actually burn Vtho in their game. Also, the toolchain, I think like part of the new toolchain stuff actually lets them use their in-game currency as a way of burning Vtho. So they have kind of a way to fund themselves, but that is actually burning more Vtho. So there is kind of a way around it, but in the end, they are burning more Vtho, and these games can actually quickly burn Vtho. If these games get really popular, Vtho price could, 10x or even 100x in very quick fashion, and then they would have to change the ecosystem, which would benefit Vtho users, Vtho holders in the long run. So in that respect, if the game is very successful, then Vtho could quickly appreciate in price several times to what it is. But that is a big if. We can't really just be like, oh, it's definitely going to be successful. It's if it's successful, that's a big if, but that is a lot of potential right there. So and then he says Vtho is so undervalued, the original intended ecosystem of enterprises buying VET can't manifest. It honestly still sort of can. Not everyone can buy the same VET, but then VET, I don't think they envisioned it being 3 cents all the way around. And I don't think the current rate of Vtho generation, or how many transactions it takes to burn a Vtho, or how many Vtho it takes to burn to do a transaction will actually last. They can always adjust that, and when they adjust that, that will favor us. So I do think at that point, Vtho can, they can do 1 Vtho is now 10 Vtho is worth of transactions. So Vtho price could actually jump x10 all of a sudden. And then VET price, because the oil's worth more, the oil derrick's going to be worth a lot more as well, and the land around the oil derrick, which is what VET is. So both Vtho and VET price would actually jump because of the increased staking rewards. Remember, the Vtho staking rewards right now from VET is only about 2%, but once it actually jumps like that, it would be 20% unless VET rose, and then VET price would appreciate because of that. And also, other smaller companies might want to hold some VET at that point just to generate the gas that they can sell to other companies, and that could be an ecosystem by itself. So yeah, in that sense, it is undervalued. But until we get to that 37 million marker, I don't think you can consider it undervalued. But the speed which it can reach that, because of things like Vulcanverse and continued additions on Walmart China and other enterprises, yeah, you do actually have a point there. So, but instead of trying to force a broken system, Vechain has pivoted to a business strategy that is increasing adoption rapidly. The pivot was necessary and has been excellently executed and will be open the gates to wider mass adoption. He's talking about toolchain, and obviously that has definitely helped, and that's why we're seeing so much Vtho burn. It's clear no CEO will lock up immense capital that could be used for business growth, in an extremely volatile, high-risk asset that returns a minuscule monetary value. So that's actually not true. If you actually think the price of Vtho is going to go up, then VET is not returning a minuscule monetary value. And plus, even at this current rate, if you have a note or something, you're returning 2-3%, which is a lot better than your money in the bank. And if there's mass adoption of VET, then it's really not that highly risky of an asset. So I think there's problems with that statement. But you are right, there are some startups that don't want to lock up capital, that would just rather buy the Vtho straight up, which would actually increase the price of Vtho. However, every CEO wants to utilize a platform that will save money and add transparency, safety, and authenticity. That is true, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to use Vechain. There's other platforms out there, both public and private, although Vechain is one of the market leaders. The emergence of toolchain allows companies to cut out crypto and pay a stable rate in their local currency. That is true, but on the back end, they're still converting their currency into Vtho and then burning the Vtho. And we just talked about on the back end, because Vtho is the only form of payment that blockchain accepts, Vtho has tangible functional value. That is true. Vtho is the initial mover from influx of new capital, and Vtho value rises with higher demand. That is all true. VET becomes an economically viable asset. Yes, that is all true. Tool chain cuts out the growing pains. That's also true. But I think this is like overstated and overinflated. It does a little bit overstated and overinflated a little bit. It does depend on a lot of things falling into line. And it's not going to be a really quick thing unless Vulcanverse or VimWorld takes off very, very quickly. But, you know, if I were to give this whole thing a rating, I would rate it maybe like 60% true, 40% fluff. Because it is true that the ecosystem is expanding. You can tell by the burns from last year to this year. It's grown about 3x. And if it grows 3x again in another year, then we will be hitting that $37 million Vtho burn mark this time next year. And that at that time, like, utility will actually force the price up, and those are going to be some really, really big gains. Like, when will it actually even out instead of like exponentially grow? I'm not really sure, but Sunny Lou's kind of like Sunny Lou's timeline did actually say it was like 2022 to 2025 was the period of massive growth. And, you know, next year is 2022. So next year, if everything holds true, next year at the beginning of the year, we will break the 37 million, and that could be the exponential growth time in terms of utility. I'm sure this year it will pump just because of Bitcoin as well. But, you know, like I said, overall, I would give this thread maybe like 60% true, 40% fluff. But Vtho could be a dark horse, but it won't be a dark horse that all of a sudden shoots up within the next month or two, like 1,000x, maybe 10x. It definitely could, because it just did that a month ago. 10x it could, but 1,000x I don't think so. I think like you'll see these steps coming. Maybe it'll happen like next year when we actually get to the 37 million. But if you really want to invest in Vtho, I don't think it's a bad investment. I would rather invest in VET myself, because I think VET price generally appreciates along with Vtho. And VET, although it does go up and down, is less pump and dumpish than Vtho. And you can get free Vtho just by holding VET. But if you want to buy Vtho, that's also not a bad investment. You just got to get it while it's fairly cheap. Like, you didn't want to get it at the top of the pump last month. You want to get it like right now when it's actually coming down. So that's kind of my spiel for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.